Hi, thanks for joining me. I'm Tanya Cooper, and I wanted to talk about, I suppose, what everybody's talking about. It's almost the end of 2020, and most people are more excited about that than Christmas, actually, and for good reason. But I wanted to talk to you about, well, getting back to normal. Uh, it's almost the end of the year, which means we're embarking on 2021, and nobody knows what that's going to be like. It was a surprise to us what 2020 was, but um, the topic today is um, getting back to normal. I'm sure you can almost hear it along with people planning for the new year. Let's go back. Let's go back. There should be a wave to that, like at the game. Let's go back. Let's go back. Let's go back. And indeed, all people all over the world, not just here in the United States, but all over the world, have been rocked by COVID-19 and everything surrounding it, all of its quarantine measures and wearing masks and washing your hands to songs. And for almost 8 months now, it's a long time. And, who could blame us, right? It's time to let's go back. But what are we going back to? Our normal lives? How many of us have said something like, I'll be glad when we get back to normal, whatever normal is or was? Or I'll be glad when we can finally blank again. Fill in the blank. It really doesn't matter. Everybody can fill in the blank with something. Something like stop wearing masks. That's at the top of everybody's list. And I don't blame you. Yeah, stop wearing masks. I'll be glad when we can finally stop wearing masks. I'll be glad when we can finally get on an airplane. Although some people are doing that now, I hear. That won't be me. Or go on a cruise. Yeah, I won't be doing that either. It was kind of scary earlier this year. Or here's a good one: send my kids anywhere but here. That, do that. I'll be glad when we can finally send the kids anywhere but here. Absolutely. And I get it. But maybe we can stop and think for a minute what going back to normal might actually mean. So for me personally, my normal is more the first thing that would happen when we got back to normal is I'd go back to going to work, actually commuting to work. I'm not a stay-at-home worker normally, so I'd be commuting again. Um, and my commuting would be more expensive now than it was earlier this year before COVID, because I do something called slugging. Slugging is an informal um, hitchhike kind of system that we have here. And slugging was free. Free. No, free. Okay. Okay. And so now with COVID, I have to take public transportation, which is not free. So that would be more expensive for me. Obviously, the ones that come to mind are less time with God, definitely, less time with family and friends, less flexibility in my schedule. Because now working at home, you know what? Seriously, I can uh, be at work by 8:30, um, then run to the store real quick and come back and work. And without commuting to work, from work to home, that's more time I have to be productive at work. Going back to normal means that's less time being productive at work. I'd be more tired. Oh my goodness, I'd be way more tired. So going back to normal, um, I don't know if that's going back to the way it was, which we call normal. And seriously, since, I'm just talking to you, I haven't really put on clothes since quarantine. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't have to put on clothes. I work from home, my house. Okay. And, since we're on the topic of clothes, I haven't washed any clothes. I don't wash as often. There's a lot of advantages I have now that I didn't have a few months ago. There's a lot of disadvantages too, as well. A lot to be said about what has happened in our society, in our communities, around the world since February and March of 2020. But can't you still hear it? I mean, we're on the edge of 2020, and everybody wants, December 31st to be the end of all things 2020. And you can hear the chanting, let's go back, let's go back, let's go back. And it started to sound really familiar to me. Not like at a game, there's no wave involved, but referencing going back to the way things used to be. And that started to sound normal. That started to sound familiar. So familiar, I actually looked it up. So going to Exodus 12. Exodus, which means getting out of, is when God released the children of Israel through Moses from slavery in Egypt. Well, the Israelites had been in Egypt for more than 400 years at this point, after which God tells them to leave the only home they had known for generation and generation and generation and generation. And God tells them they're leaving Egypt to go to a place flowing with milk and honey. Okay, now from a modern perspective, I don't even know what that means, flowing with milk and honey. But I have an idea that it means God would be bringing them to a land where there would be plenty of provision. But see, God doesn't really stop at the flowing with milk and honey part. He further explains in Deuteronomy 6 through Moses again, and I'll read this. It's Deuteronomy 6 and 10. That's where I'm starting. When the Lord your God brings you into the land he swore to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that he would give you a land with large and beautiful cities that you did not build, houses full of every good thing that you did not fill them with, cisterns, I'm thinking that means wells, cisterns that you did not dig, and vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant. And when you eat and are satisfied, be careful not to forget the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Did you hear that? Cities that you did not build, large and beautiful cities, houses full of every good thing that I didn't have to fill them with. What, girl, look, I would be out. I was an Israelite, it'd be like, show me the place. Show me where I can live in a house I didn't have to build or pay for. I ain't have to stomp no straw to do it. No. And you're gonna feed me land flowing with vineyards and olive groves. I get to take my pick and my fill. I get to eat till I'm satisfied, till I'm full. Yeah, I'm in. Count me in. What do we need to do? Pack my camel, slap my mule. Let's go. That's where I want to be. The land flowing with milk and honey, with houses built that I can live in that I didn't have to build. That's what I want to go. It sounded like God was promising paradise. And it had to be paradise after so many years and decades of slavery, drudgery, and hopelessness. But how about we also know that sometimes we get tired of hearing about something we can't, see, touch, and feel right away. So after years of wandering around in the desert, well, actually, technically, after only a few months of wandering around in the desert, they began to reminisce about the good old days and when things were normal and at the very least familiar. You see, right? I'm sure you understand, right? Just like us, our familiar. Familiar like loads and loads of laundry, which again, I don't do anymore. Dishes every day, long hours of commuting, the back and forth to kids' events, um, school events, church events, and also the ever popular continuous grocery store run. Because, see, at first, the Israelites were happy and excited to leave Egypt and cross over the Red Sea. In my own imagination, they were probably looking forward to the possibility of more relaxation, like extra sleep. Who's not looking forward to more extra sleep? More time with family, no more commuting or long hours of stomping straw to make bricks or having people torture you at work. See, again, there you go. I'm on board. Get my camel. Get my camel. They even sang a praise song to God, recounting his deeds and great power after crossing the Red Sea. That's in Exodus 15. It's a lively, um, like a party song, a song with lots of music and dancing as if they were in a festival, because now is the time to celebrate. We've been delivered. We're free, not slaves. Crossed the Red Sea. We thought we were backed up against between a rock and a hard place, and God delivered again. We walked on dry land through the Red Sea. We're on the other side. Hallelujah. We start singing and praising and dancing and talking about how God delivered us from the hands of Egypt and the Pharaoh. But then somewhere around Exodus 16, which is actually only one chapter after Exodus 15, but in biblical times, it was about 2 or 3 months. So actually around Exodus 16, 2 months after leaving Egypt, they start murmuring. And murmuring is what we today call complaining. So let's take stock. Let's talk about the quarantine. For me, the first few weeks seemed like a mini vacation. I slept late every day because instead of waking up 2 hours before having to be at work, I could get up literally 10 minutes before work because my commute was just going downstairs and boom, I'm at work. My work environment was a lot more relaxed. See, work environment. And as well as my work attire, I could wear sweats or my pajamas to work. People, really? Do I want to give that up? I'm not so sure. And everything at first seemed really ideal. But after a while, some things did change that weren't as ideal in my new reality. Although my schedule was less restrictive and more flexible, I had to make sure I was adhering to all the various safety protocols. There were now places that I desired to go and had the time to go, but couldn't because everything had closed. So many things had changed all at once, and it became mind-boggling and sometimes, honestly, hard to keep track of. And I was not the only one who felt this way. So much like the Israelites, I started to grumble. And I'm sure a lot of us did. Things like, again, I sure wish I didn't have to wear this mask all the time. Man, how long is the store going to be out of toilet paper? Yes. I can't believe we had to cancel our travel plans. Or, what do you mean? Summer camps are closed. Man, really? All those things kind of piling one on top of the other just builds up the stress. And like our stress, the Israelites wanted to leave the desert. Now, the desert was a place that God had released them into. And then they wanted to go back to their normal, more familiar life in Egypt, which was a place God had released them out of. But in their remembrance, suddenly, Egypt was not a life of hardship, but a life of where they had access to all kinds of different foods, pleasure of the senses and smells and tastes, beautiful sights to see. They forgot about their hardship. Suddenly, Egypt was a place where they knew exactly what to expect each and every day. And I bet that's still like us. Quarantining has been so challenging in many ways for so many of us that we too could begin to desire the familiar, even if it may no longer be ideal or good for us. So let's stop and consider what we want to return to. We want kids back in face-to-face school. Do we want our lives to be a little busier than sitting around the house? Do we really want less time with the family? Do we really want less time to think and do for others, maybe? And do we really want less time with God? Less concentrated time in a relationship that we should value? It'll end up being more time to do the busy work of busy lives, busy church work, instead of possibly continuing to do the work of Christ. I know a lot of us have been volunteering a lot and serving our communities more, loving thy neighbor, trying to at least figure out what that is, right? Because now you have more time and more flexibility. Do you really want to go back to when it was almost impossible to even try and think of where we would fit that in? Here's a question. Well, some of us desire to go back to normal instead of stepping into the future promises of God. God promised the Israelites a land flowing with milk and honey. And no sooner had they gotten away from the backdrop of Egypt and the Red Sea and stood on solid ground with their backs turned to Egypt and their faces facing forward, then they forgot. They forgot all about what God said they were moving toward. So here's the question. How can we take hold of what's in the future if we're looking over our shoulders and holding on to our past? That's a really good question. Now, in my head, having said the question, immediately pops into my head this picture of a child holding onto their parents' hand. And little kids, and I'm talking about the real little ones, and they're holding on, their little legs are trying to keep up with the parents, and the parents are kind of moving a little too fast, but something catches that child's eye. He's like moving forward, head moving back. And what happens? Those little legs trip up and they almost fall until their parents catch them. And that's what I see our looking back as. We want to go back to what's familiar, back in some cases to what's been easier, to be honest, back to knowing what to expect. Man, it's the unexpected, not knowing what each day brings. And you try and settle into a new normal until this all blows over, but it has taken so long. And that's how we feel, that this has taken so long. Now, of course, not everything pre-COVID-19 has been bad or detrimental. For some of us, there were great aspects to our lives pre-COVID-19, and I'm not trying to discount any of that. But let's even take that into consideration and consider the wonderful life you had before pre-COVID-19. Whatever that was for you, that good part, that joyous part, that wonderful aspect, would you have even achieved that if you had been concentrating on your past even before COVID-19? I dare say it's worth considering. Okay, so all that being said, now what? We can't actually completely go back to how things were. And the problem is we don't exactly know what the future holds. So what do we do in the meantime? Well, we have the present, and quite a unique one. We're living in unprecedented times, as everyone keeps reminding us, as if we need to be reminded. It's now more possible than ever for a lot of us to reach out to people in our neighborhoods and communities, take family daycations, see monuments, hike in the mountains, stop and smell the flowers, as it were, enjoy time that you didn't have and that we might not get again, to be closer to friends and family. I know for me, my life was busy, not overly busy, but normal busy. But I haven't, pre-COVID-19, connected with more family and friends than in these few months since COVID-19. Like, I'm talking to people I haven't talked to in a long time, and we're doing, what is it, Team or Zoom or whatever it is we decide to do, and it's been wonderful. Now, would you like to drive over to their house and do it more? Yes. But some people have, still far away, and we connect at least once or twice a month, something I hadn't done ever. Even when people lived close, I didn't talk to them or see them as much. And that actually has been a joy. That's one of the things I've enjoyed about COVID-19. For some, it has become infinitely more affordable to return to school or take extra training classes since everything is online. So that's been an interesting aspect as well. Some of the more unique things I've been able to do since the quarantine are things like this: participating in videos and speaking engagements, something I'm not sure I would have had the flexibility in my day to do before. There's a lot that goes on with the commuting and things like that, and that takes a lot of extra time. Everything is more consolidated since COVID-19. What else? Daytime schedules, connect more with friends. That's me. And I have, I have more time to do two of the things I love to do most. Okay. I have three things I like to do. One is watch movies. There's a lot more time to do that, but I try not to do that too much. And I love reading books. I love reading books. I mean, I should actually have a bookstore. I really should. I love reading that much, and writing. I do quite a bit of writing, and now I actually have time to focus on my writing and pay attention to my writing. And you should think about the more positive aspects of this season. I don't know what it'll be in your life that has been a positive aspect to COVID-19. But whatever it is, I hope you can find at least one new positive element of your present situation you'd like to continue in a future. I think that's really important to take stock of where we are now and take some of those positive energies, some of those new hobbies, new likes, new training, and carry that with you into wherever we're going, because no idea where we're going except for 2021. And I don't know what 2021 is going to be like. I'd like to take, in one of the most famous verses in the Bible, I wanted to go there. God tells the prophet Jeremiah to tell his people, God's people, who have been exiled from Jerusalem into Babylon because of their disobedience, that he, God, has a plan for their future, to prosper them and not to harm them. I'm sure you know what scripture that is, Jeremiah 29:11. But I wanted to take a moment to note that at the time God's people are in exile, which is away from their homeland, Jerusalem, they have been overrun and taken away by their enemies from the very land God promised them, okay, because of their disobedience to him. But God tells them that even while they're in the midst of their discipline, that even then, he had a plan for their future. You too may feel as if you're in a similar situation, in this situation, COVID-19, in this season of perpetual quarantine and all of its fluidity and uncertainty. But God is saying, don't you worry. My plans are far beyond your right now. And my plans are for you to prosper. He didn't just say for it to be good. He said prosper, to flourish, to grow. That was Jeremiah 29:11. And it's a verse that has given comfort and strength to many as they struggle through various trials, as I'm sure you know. But take a look at a few verses up. Before Jeremiah 29:11, he specifically instructs his people on how they should live until their time of exile is over. In Jeremiah 29:4, he says these words. Jeremiah is speaking, is telling the people what God told him to tell him. This is what the Lord of armies, the God of Israel, says to all the exiles I deported from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses and live in them. Plant gardens and eat their produce. Find wives for yourselves and have sons and daughters. Find wives for your sons and give your daughters to men in marriage so that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there. Do not decrease. That was 4-6. God is telling his people that he exiled, that you may be in exile for a while. And this is what I want you to do while you're in exile. I want you to live your life. I want you to prosper. I want you to grow. I want you to flourish. I want you to plant things and grow things and eat things and build things. I want you to give your sons and daughters away in marriage so they can start having families and grow things. I want you to increase. I want my nation to flourish and grow and prosper. Now, verse 7 I found to be extremely interesting. Not only is God saying, yes, you're in exile. I put you in exile. And that's how a lot of us feel right now. Something's wrong. I feel encroached upon, captured, in exile, especially at the beginning of the quarantine. Everything shut down. All sports shut down. NBA, MLB, LMNOP, you name it. If it was a sport or entertainment, closed. Restaurants, bars, lounges, closed. Organizations, closed. Just about everything that was not considered essential, closed. What were we supposed to do? Where do we go from here? How do we live every day if all my go-tos are closed? The mall, come on now, y'all, the mall, closed. Jeremiah 29:4 tells you what God wants us to do. When we feel like we're in exile, when we're in a season, in a place, in a circumstance, in a situation that we're not used to for long periods of time. He said, grow. That is so encouraging. He wants us to flourish. He wants us to prosper. Verse 7 of that, of Jeremiah 29 says, and I love these different versions of verse 7. The CSB says, pursue. Check that out, pursue. That means strive after, like an athlete pursue, or like a man pursuing his woman. Pursue. Pursue the well-being of the city I have deported you to. Pray to the Lord on its behalf, for when it thrives, you will thrive. Now that's good. That's good. Okay. The NIV version of verse 7 says, also seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. That verse says, seek the prosperity of that. That means uh, help that city become prosperous. Uh, the New King James Version, NKJV, that verse says, seek the peace of the city where I have caused you to be carried away captive, and pray to the Lord for it, for in its peace you will have peace. All three versions say pretty much the same thing. And the last part, pray to the Lord for it. The CSB version at the end says, for when it thrives, you will thrive. The NIV version at the end, it says, for in its peace, you too will have peace. The NKJV says, for because as it prospers, you will prosper. In each version, God is saying, kind of up to you. Yes, I deported you. Yes, I caused you to be in exile. But if you do your part to do everything I said in the previous verses and pray for the land to prosper, to grow, to flourish, then you too will reap those same benefits. That's awesome. That's awesome. We have work to do. We have a lot of work to do. We don't know when all this will be over or what it will look like on the other end. We don't know. None of us knows what 2021 will bring, or even the last few weeks of 2020. But knowing and trusting in the one who holds our future, who has planned good for our future, is the key to our prosperity and our peace. And I wish for you all the peace and prosperity that the Lord has for you now and in the future he has for us. Till next time.